Audio check.
Hello again, Ward. How are you?
Good afternoon.
Good.
How's the volume?
Well, it sounds really good today.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
What's up, y'all?
Good afternoon, Skippy.
Hi. Just gonna hide for a moment and answer some emails.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Shannon, this is Jim True. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Hear you loud and clear.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
ASAC ads are looking good halfway through. One game from halfway through. That goes for you too, Megan. Ads looking good.
I was just noticing you're wearing your jersey. It looks great.
McKinnon's been, he's been coming back. He's scoring points.
Happy Tuesday, everybody.
Happy Tuesday.
Here we go.
I will be excited to see you guys again in person.
Yes. Are we going to start doing that in February? Have we decided yet?
We were trying to get back a week from today, but we've got a piece of equipment that's not currently here. So we still have one more hurdle to get over before we can do that. So as of right now, we're standing by. We're hoping to get there as soon as possible. But we've got to figure out this piece of equipment.
Got it. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I think we all are.
Yeah. There shall be hugs that we can put it over the door. Uh,
Hello, Counselor Doyle.
Greetings, Councilor Howenstein.
Counselor Doyle. I don't know why that happened. Sorry.
Evening, Rachel.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, this is Shannon. If you could just let GrassRoots know when you're ready or check in with them. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have council members ready to go, I believe. And it's 1 after the hour. So why don't we go ahead and get GrassRoots with us and going?
Grassroots is ready.
Thank you very much. All right, then this is a call to order for the Aspen City Council regular meeting for January 25th, 2022. Could we have a roll call for attendance, please?
Counselor Doyle,
Here.
Counselor Howenstein,
Present.
Counselor Mesro,
Present.
Counselor Richards,
Here.
Mayor Tory.
And here. Thank you for that. This evening, we have no scheduled public appearances, so we will get to citizens' comments and petitions. I want to just do a reminder for those that are calling in and joining us for citizen comments that we are going to limit those to 3 minutes in order to give everybody an equal opportunity to speak. We do have quite a sign up for some organized comments around mask mandates that are in our schools right now. Before I get to that list, let me see if there are any other members of the public that wish to address council on items not scheduled for public hearing this evening, and then we'll get to that list. Are there members of the public that are calling in that wish to share their thoughts on any items aside from yes? Yes, let's see.
Franklin?
Bob, yes?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead and introduce yourself for the record, please.
Yes, sir. My name is Robert Frickland, or I go by Bob to my friends. I live at 795 Cemetery Lane. And Mr. Mayor and Council, I would like to bring to your attention a matter which I need some help and some guidance regarding this. I guess it has to do with equal protection provided to taxpayers to access of city assets and city facilities. More specifically, it has to do with the golf course. And so I'm ready to do that whenever you'd like. If I, right now.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
Okay.
please.
So I've been a member of the Aspen community since the late 90s. My wife and I first bought a condominium at the Gant at that time. We've increasingly spent more time here. 10 years ago, we started looking for a house. We bought one 2 years ago. That will be our more permanent residence, shall we say. We do move in and out like many of you. and that is on the golf course right now. For the last 2 years, we have been able to enjoy being members of the golf course, participating in the auction, and being successful in doing so. This year, unfortunately, the qualifications and rules have changed for the golf course, which discriminate against me because I do not have a Colorado driver's license, even though I am a full-fledged Aspen taxpayer to the tune of around $20,000 a year. So I would like your help and suggestions on how I could be put on to the preferential list, or what they're calling, I guess, the locals list, on equal status to those who are on that list, many of whom do not live in the city of Aspen, do not pay taxes, and I guess get my right as a taxpayer to that equal treatment. That's what I need some guidance and some help on. You know, I play golf with people that have lived in Aspen for 50 years. My best friend is mine from the 70s. You know, we're a community. My wife and I consider us active members of the community. We go to the music tent, we fund the music tent, we fund all kinds of other charities in town. But for some reason, our right as a taxpayer is not being recognized right now by the golf course in the new process. Any thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely, Bob. What would be most helpful is if you could send me an email with your contact information, and we'll be happy to address it with you.
Okay, that would be absolutely perfect, sir.
You're absolutely not a problem at all. We appreciate you.
Thanks very much for the time. Hopefully, like many of you, someday I'll see some of you in person, but city employee friends, many folks that work with you are good friends of mine. So thanks again.
Bob, my email is just Tori at aspen.gov. TORRE at aspen.gov.
Okay, I got it, sir.
I'll get with you. Thank you, Bob.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'll make another call for members of the public that aren't calling in about the mask mandate in the schools. I want to give those people a chance to talk before we get into our list. Are there members of the public that wish to comment this evening on items not scheduled for public hearing on our agenda? Okay, we'll have another opportunity when we get through this next issue. We do have a sign up of about 20 people that are interested in speaking tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and go down my list. And if you're not on now, we'll come back to you. But I have Andrea Bryan.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
We got you, Andrea.
Great. Thank you.
Please state your name for the record, though.
Andrea Bryan, VI.A.
Thank you.
Thanks. My comments are actually were directed toward the County Public Health and the Board of Health. The reason that I'm speaking to you tonight is because you're leaders in our community and we want you to hear our stories and use the power that you have to bring some normalcy back to our children's lives. My comments are not restricted just to mask mandates. It's focused on a return to normal. There's a perception that Pitkin County doesn't really care what's happening to our children who don't spend money at bars and restaurants, but does care immensely about people who spend money in the town, like ex-gamers and Gay Ski Week attendees. Just to illustrate, I was out in town myself this last weekend and went to an après party at the Aspen Art Museum. It was packed, unmasked, indoors, no vaccine cards, and I saw Skippy there. He didn't see me, but I saw him, and you know what? I embrace that. This is not being critical of that. I want things to return to normal. Facebook and Instagram were flooded with photos of people partying indoors, unmasked at levels that probably exceeded pre-pandemic. But while the ex-gamers and other tourists crowd into our bars and restaurants and dance and sing on tables unmasked and packed shoulder to shoulder at Cloud 9, our youngest population are stuck in 2020, still subject to rigid testing requirements to return to school, forced to eat lunch isolated from their peers upon return from senseless and ever-changing quarantines, and masked for 8+ hours a day at school, during which they're unable to see the faces or expressions of their peers or teachers. A preschooler can't see his teacher's face while she sings, and a kindergartner can't see his teacher's lips move while she tries to teach the class to read. We tolerated many of these restrictions in the early days of COVID before vaccines and when much less was known, but these restrictions on our kids simply don't make sense anymore. No one disputes that COVID is, quote, overwhelmingly mild in young children, even those who are unvaccinated, and that's a January 14th, 2022 New York Times article. As the article pointed out, the risk of COVID hospitalization for children, even in recent weeks, has been much lower than the risk from the respiratory virus RSV. The current COVID hospitalization rate in Pitkin County, according to their own statistics, is 0.32%. And that includes hospitalizations where COVID was a secondary diagnosis and doesn't account for the at-home positive tests that are never reported. According to its own website, 99% of Pitkin County residents have received their first dose of the vaccine and 80% are fully vaccinated. Yet despite these numbers, Pitkin County seems to be moving backward, with Board of Health members doubling down on their positions. There's no one who cares more about the health and well-being of my children and my family than I do. And I am worried about my children, but not about the effects of COVID. I'm worried about the effects of COVID restrictions and protocols. I'm worried that my 4-year-old has never seen his teacher's face and my 6-year-old can't properly hear word pronunciation as he works on his reading. The restrictions we've imposed the last 2 years on our kids don't make sense anymore and have come at a great cost, socially, emotionally, and educationally. I'm imploring you to please look at the data, do everything in your power to help regain a normal school environment for our kids. They've already had 2 of their most formative years stolen. Please don't take any more. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. I've got Morgan Worth next. Is Morgan there?
Hi, I'm here.
Hi there.
Hi. So for the record, my name is Morgan Worth. The last name is with an A and not an O. I am a mental health therapist in the Valley. I primarily work with kids, teens, and families. I want to speak a little bit to the mental health impacts of COVID restrictions on kids and what we're seeing locally. The Aspen Hope Center has reported that in the 12 months of 2021 compared to the 12 months of 2019, there's been a 130% increase in crisis evaluations for kids 11 and under. Evaluations are not calls, crisis calls. They're kids who are suicidal enough to warrant a professional evaluating their risk for their need for hospitalization within 24 hours of the call. It's pretty severe. There's been a 64% increase for adolescents ages 12 to 18 and a 28% increase for adults ages 30 to 39, which is many of the parents in the Valley. I think those are pretty staggering statistics and show very clearly that our kids and families are in crisis. As far as masks, there's been recent research that has shown a 350% increase in speech delays in kids because of masks. I'm not going to spend additional time repeating the same statistics that Andrea gave you, but I think in comparison, a risk-benefit analysis needs to be done. The 0.32% hospitalization rate for COVID doesn't equate with the damage that is being done to kids and families. Kids' brains develop, or our brains as humans develop most rapidly in early childhood. That's when we develop empathy. That's when we learn to read facial expressions. A society of children that have not developed the skill of empathy is pretty terrifying to me. And I think it should be terrifying to you all. I don't think any of us want to see that society. I have a 1-year-old that I'm thinking about sending to daycare in Pitkin County. I may not send her if her teachers and her peers will be wearing masks when she goes. I want her seeing people's faces as long as the risk to the hospitals is not critical and as long as the risk to the population is not critical. The data shows that it's not. We have consistently followed the science and somehow we are departing from that. The science is showing that families are in crisis. The science is showing that kids are in crisis. Kids, when they see their caregivers' faces, are getting messages about whether they're safe, whether what they're doing is important. Kids that don't feel that what they're doing is important, can't evaluate that, don't develop in healthy ways. Kids are not developing in healthy ways. We are creating a public health crisis with the standards that we are putting in place. And I implore you guys to stand up for our kids and our families because we are suffering. And not many people can handle it much further. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Morgan. Anna Zane? Is Anna with us? Yes. Anna?
Great. Thank you so much. First, I just want to thank City Council for having this public forum, giving us the opportunity to be able to speak. Like everybody else, my comments are mostly directed at public health and also at CDPHE, but also at all leaders of our community and our state. And I really hope that the City Council will hear our plight and that they'll help us advocate for our children. I'm a mom of 4, ranging in age from 16 down to age 4. So I really see the gamut of everything and how this is impacting all of our kids in different ways. Right now, we're calling on public health to help us put us on a path to ending these COVID restrictions for our children. These are the most vulnerable people in our society right now, and they are the most negatively impacted by all of these restrictions. While we appreciate the ongoing efforts to keep our children attending in-person learning, I can't tell you how much we appreciate everybody making sacrifices to allow our kids to attend in person. We now must de-escalate the fear culture that is pervasive in the school and normalize the daily school experience as much as possible. Our highly vaccinated county has some of the strictest and most restrictive COVID-19 policies in the state and country. Yet in the last few weeks, we've had one of the highest incidence rates in the country. Day in and day out, it's our children who continue to bear the burden of this pandemic, even though they're at lower risk for severe disease and complications from COVID. We're increasingly concerned about the toll these policies continue to have on our children, our teens, and our families. So we're also asking on public health that they defend these policies that they've mandated on our children while the rest of the town is living free without very many restrictions. We now know far more about this virus, but really we're just beginning to understand the consequences of the mitigation. And continuing these restrictions is really inflicting far more damage than benefit at this point. Honestly, I can tell you because I'm with children every day of all ages, our children are riddled with anxiety and they're riddled with fear. They've been shamed over the last 2 years for wanting to play in parks, to play sports without masks, to attend birthday parties, or even just to adjust their masks. Some of these children are depressed, some of them are scared. They've missed out on milestone after milestone, and they're just still told to just keep being resilient. Many of them feel a deep burden of responsibility. And honestly, how can you not, as a child, feel a sense of responsibility, a burden of it, when your teachers are telling you in your school that if you don't properly mask, it will kill your teacher? That's what's happening in our schools. Some of these kids are at a breaking point, and some of them are so cynical that they are questioning all authority. I'm telling you right now, our children are not okay, and we need right now to return to normalcy more than ever. I'm going to tell you some personal anecdotes because that's really all I can do. I have a 4-year-old who's been in a mask for half of her life. And these are her most formative years. And she's been forced to wear what now is being called a face decoration. The CDC has even recently acknowledged that cloth masks do little to prevent the spread. Yet I have to drop off my child with her preschool peers every single day, and they're masked for upwards of 8 hours a day, and then again in after school activities. She does not know what life is like without wearing a mask on her face. Recently, you guys came down hard on, and I mean public health came down hard on the hockey program. Well, let me tell you how that impacted my teenage daughter. My teenage daughter, when the locker rooms were taken away, was made to change in front of other teenage boys in a room full of 40 people with other kids. It was a humiliating experience. She came home in tears. My kids are masked on the ice. My poor 11-year-old was crying last night after hockey practice because he had his mask on his face during hockey, which was already wet and gross because breathing cold air makes it wet and gross. And he went to take a drink of water, and the water made his mask soaking wet, and he couldn't adjust it. And this is what he's trying to do while he's playing hockey. My teenage daughter is also struggling to understand her teachers at school. Her favorite subject is French. but she's struggling in that class because she can't hear her teacher and she can't see him pronounce his words. So she's having an extremely difficult time with the oral part of French. Lastly, my 5th grader comes home from school doubled over in hunger every day because they've now reduced the lunchtime to 15 minutes. They have a 15-minute window to eat lunch to prevent the spread. So he brings a very minimal lunch to school because that's all he has time to eat. And the other thing that happened to him recently, and this is where I honestly broke with the 15-minute lunch, and then he went to adjust his mask in class because the straps were hurting his ears. And when he did that, he was so severely reprimanded that he kept his mask on for the rest of the day, having indents in his ears when he came home from school. That same night, you know, I learned that a fellow hockey player of ours in VI.A was killed by a car in a parking garage. So and all I could think was, what was that child's COVID experience like who now has lost his life? So the last few things I want to tell you is that each time I talk through my kids through their tears, I go on social media and I see things like this, and I apologize that this is how I'm doing this, but here's my daughter masked in her choir concert. Here's a picture of a party at Cloud9 the same week. Here is Belly Up. All of these unmasked people partying, and my kids are struggling in school. Okay, more. I have countless pictures like these and videos of our town like this. That's my 4-year-old doing ballet. A vector of disease, trying to enjoy ballet. So I'm just taking this time right now. I really appreciate you guys. We're using this. We need your help. We need you to advocate us. We need you to help our kids. Our families are struggling, and we just feel like we have nowhere to turn and no one to help us with our plight. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks, Anna. I'm going to reiterate, I'm really going to ask if people can limit their comments to 3 minutes. I don't want to cut anybody off, but I'm going to have to. So we'll go on through our list, and if it's past 3 minutes, then I am apologizing now, but I'm going to go ahead and have to mute you and move forward. Next one up is Jill Ettinger.
Thanks so much, Mr. Mayor. I echo the thanks that everybody said so far to you hearing us today. I didn't time myself, so please do cut me off because I do understand the need to do that. My name's Jill Ettinger. I was formerly Jill Tian when I lived in Pickens County. I now live in Garfield County, so you may be wondering why I stand before you today and why I have been so outspoken in the last few weeks. And I want you to know that I stand before you today because so many of your own constituents are afraid to. They are afraid to speak up and tell you that they share the views you are hearing today. They're afraid of the backlash they'll feel at their schools in Pickens County, at their workplaces in Pickens County, and just in general in the community. They don't want to be the person who gets attacked. Consistent with the attacks on character that have been prolific during this virus on those people who disagree with the mainstream narrative. So please understand that while I stand before you today as somebody who deeply loves Aspen and has been a very committed member of our community, I speak for so many of your own constituents who are suffering. I want to focus my remarks on the way that the parents of young children are suffering. Many of you know me personally. That's certainly true for Tori and Skippy, and I think it would be fair to say that I am someone who has a lot of grit. I have a lot of stamina, and I stand before you to say that I am at my breaking point as a parent in our community of young children. I am literally falling apart at the seams from the pressure on my family to deal with these policies and live with them. And this has been going on for 2 years. These quarantines of preschoolers who can't be masked is so disruptive to our lives and our abilities to work that it's forced my husband and me to work into the night I've had one child out of school almost every single day, one of my 3 children, since October 26th. And that means he gets to work half the day and I work the other half, and we both go back to work and work till midnight. And then we don't do the laundry and I don't do the online grocery shopping, let alone have 10 minutes to just sit and try to relax and de-stress. And then we snap at our kids and we snap at each other more because we say to them, guys, no time for another story. Got to go to bed because the work is piling up. And they feel this stress. And then I feel even more despair because I feel like a failure as a mother. And this is why 2 weeks ago I said, that's it. I have been silent because I don't want to be ostracized either. And I don't have time. This is not a battle I want to be in. But it can't wait. And so that's why a few weeks ago, when I got another quarantine notice, I started to speak up. And what I learned is that maybe the people in positions of power like yours haven't really heard the story of what it's been to be a family with young children who are constantly out of school. To hear your kids come home and say, Mom, I don't want to go to gymnastics in Aspen because I don't want to wear that mask when I'm doing gymnastics, or to have your friends say, my kindergartner, this is Angie, my kindergartner lies to the nurse about being sick because he doesn't want to be in school. He's in kindergarten, he hates school. Please, our parents cannot do this anymore. It's not sustainable. We are going to have a huge mental health crisis. I implore you to please consider reasonable policy changes. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Jill. Summerberg?
Hi, everyone. I will be pretty short. I definitely, many of you know me. I'm a parent. I have a kindergartner and second grader, and really just echo everything the prior speakers have said and support, you guys as in positions of power, really starting to get involved and pay attention to what's going on. But, how I look at this really is that, when the pandemic started, we all had to learn how to be flexible, like really flexible. And I think it's time that governments and policies start to allow for a lot more flexibility. It's time for the tables to turn a little bit and, allow flexibility for private businesses, for daycares, schools, parents, allow us to start making decisions for our own families, and the data constantly changes. Like our family, and we have a lot of friends who are all pro-vaxxers, we're part of that 80+% of people who are vaccinated. I vaccinated my kids, wasn't happy about that, but I did. And now with all the data changing, like, I don't think I want to inject myself or anyone else at this point, because I don't know if it's worth it anymore, because, everything's evolving and changing so much. And, even Fauci and everybody at the CDC, like, it's not a matter of if you get this virus, it's a matter of when, and it's passing through our community pretty fast right now. And it's just, it's like having chickenpox parties back when we were all kids. Like, let us just get past this already and let our kids have a normal life. And it is affecting all of our kids and all their after school activities and their social play dates and having to limit exposure constantly. I would just ask that you really, like I started, just, back off on all the stringent policies and top-down policies and put these matters back into families' hands. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Summer. Julia Russo, is Julia with us?
Hi, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can. Please introduce yourself for the record.
Hi, I'm Julia Russo. Thank you so much for listening to us, and thank you for all the moms. I'm emotional already just by hearing all the stories. I cannot even cope. But so I have a 3.5-year-old. I live in Aspen. Back in August, I wrote a petition, and we had around 200 signatures within like 48 hours. Parents asking, the petition was asking the mask mandate to be amended and be optional for kids' daycare age. That's my kid's age. I always thought it should be optional for any age, but at the time, especially for that age, for their development and everything that has been said, the lip movement, the expressions, that's so important. So I tried, I didn't get much feedback. And so I changed my child to a school down Valley, and he doesn't wear a mask. I hate that I have to drive 30 minutes down, 30 minutes back to go to work, and then I have to go pick him up 30 minutes down, 30 minutes back. So I drive 2 hours when he goes to school. I hate it, but he's thriving, and I'm so happy I did that choice. It was hard on him to change him to a school that he loved. He loved the teachers, he loved his friends, but he is having a normal life. And hearing those mothers, like I said, it's like I was tearing just by hearing this thing. But I know that so many parents want to unmask their children, and a lot of them that they don't know what to do. They don't have time to even think about it. All they they have to work. They have to have their kids at school. I know maybe just a couple mothers that want their kids masked. So fine, give us the option. I'm sure, sorry, I'm like trying to read my notes after all this. I hear from so many mothers that like the mask that the kids come back home with is like disgusting, is wet. They're breathing their own breath all day long. They're doing sports with that. Sometimes they drop it on the ground. And I literally, like they say that masks there don't even belong to them, come back in their backpack. So they're switching masks. How can that be healthy? How can that be helping them? They're sharing masks. Like this is not what we're trying to do here. And I also see kids that like they leave the school bus, they keep their mask on. They're just so used to that, and daycare age groups that come out with the teachers, some teachers, I believe, don't take the mask off because it's probably just so hard to put it back. They have 8 kids, 2 teachers, like put the mask back on. So just leave them on. So these kids are wearing the mask like all day long, outside, inside, they're running around, they're playing, they're doing sports. That's not healthy for them. I feel like adolescents are getting paranoid. They're going to get sick. They're going to get somebody sick. And we've always lived with RSV, like hand, foot, and mouth disease, other diseases. They're more like contagious and worse for these kids. And we've always knew that. We always knew they would spread. We've always been careful with, we wash our hands, we tell our kids to wash their hands. Like you can go to a restaurant, to a concert, no mask required for anybody. And then why do we have to do this to our children? And one thing that I want to finish with, I remember this clearly when I was pregnant, and my husband and I went to interview a pediatrician, which is now my son's pediatrician. And we were just asking him several different questions, did not even have a kid yet. And he said this to us, you are the parent and you decide what's best to your child. So why are we not doing this? I think we should let the parents decide what's best to their children and not, mentally damage them anymore. It's time. Thank you for listening to us.
Thank you, Julia.
Thanks, Julia.
Wendy Hendrickson? If you're calling in on a phone, you need to unmute by hitting *6. We can come back. Avery Nelson? Unmute by hitting *6 if you're on a phone line. We'll come back. Alyssa Schmidt. Yep.
Hi.
Hi there.
Okay. I'm Alyssa Schmitz. I live in Snowmass Village, and I'm a mom of 2 preschoolers, a 4-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. So I had a baby during the pandemic. And thank you all so much for letting us come and listen to what we have to say. My comments are all directed to the health board, but I really appreciate you listening to them and wish I could comment to them directly. But this will do. So I'm coming today because the Board of Health refuses to take public comments, and I'm hopeful that the city of Aspen will engage Pitkin County about why the Board of Health refuses to allow the public comment. My kids have been in and out of school due to confusing COVID restrictions that to me really do not seem to follow science. or logic at this point. My kids have to wear masks all day except when eating or sleeping at their preschool, but that doesn't qualify as consistently masked. And I mean, our preschool has done a phenomenal job making sure that they listen and they keep them on, except for when they're eating or they're sleeping. They've done a really good job with that because they're good kids and they will do what an adult tells them to do. So I firmly believe that you guys are doing everything that you can to protect our community. I know you would do that. And I would ask you to review the science and the data that we have 2 years now into COVID. So I think that's just the main thing, is look at how the science has changed and what we know now. The statistics have already been shared by the other women on here, so I don't want to repeat them. But I would ask you to consider the impacts of the health board's continued restrictions and the impacts that those are having on our children and the citizens, and especially moms, stay-at-home moms, working moms. Our job's hard enough, and this is just making it a lot harder. So I think enough is enough, and we just need to get back to normal. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being here.
Yeah.
Carson Schmidt? Is Carson with us?
We're good. We're good.
Okay.
He's making
Thank
dinner. Okay,
All
bye.
right.
Thanks, Carson.
We are at Michelle James, Jeremy James, and Michelle James. If you're on a phone, you can hit *6 in order to unmute yourself. We can come back. Allison Mangelson.
Hi, can everyone hear me okay?
We got you.
Okay, great. Thank you guys again for taking our comments. So I'm a mother of 4 children. The oldest is in kindergarten at Aspen Elementary. My next 2 are at a local preschool in Aspen, and our 4th child is home with me full time. As a mother of 4 children and a Pitkin County resident, I felt it was important to share my experience and observations with City Council and the Pitkin County Board of Health. I do believe it was necessary for our community and children to wear masks for the past almost 2 years, where the past variants were more severe, there were no vaccines, and there's a lot more unknowns. However, now that we are coming down from our peak of the new variant, we know more about COVID. I believe the masks are unnecessary at this point, especially in the preschool and elementary school classrooms. Children are just as likely to have severe symptoms from the flu as they are from COVID, and we don't mask up for the flu. What I believe we have failed to consider is the damage we are doing and have done to our kids, with them not seeing their friends' faces in school, not seeing emotions on other kids' faces, and not seeing smiles in their classrooms. It breaks my heart that 3 of my kids don't get to see their friends smile for 6 hours a day. 85% of this year's kindergarten class tested for speech errors, the highest ever. This is directly related to children wearing masks for the past 1.5 years of school. When a child cannot see their teacher's mouth, they cannot learn to pronounce their letters and sounds correctly. Furthermore, when children have a speech error, it directly impacts and hinders their ability to read, and the list goes on from the impacts this will have on their development and maturity. I encourage the Board of Health to take another look at the mask mandates for students, to look beyond the COVID case numbers and incident rates, and to look at the lack of COVID side effects for children versus the long-term impacts mask mandates will have on our children. When the hospitalization rates of the variant are 0.032%, why are we still wearing masks? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Allison. Gina Turchin. Is Gina with us? Meredith Church. Again, if you're on a phone, *6 to unmute yourself. Kristen Strope. Maggie Boosted. Maggie with us. All right, Kristen, I have a Kristen Stroke on the call.
Yeah, I unfortunately just can't really share my thoughts because I'm at my desk at work.
Okay.
I do.
Your comments are for the same aim, though. You are supportive of reducing the mask requirement for children in school?
Yes, 100%. You know, I can't give you a personal story, you know, like I'm Kristen Stroke for the record. I have 2 kids, 3 and 6. We live in Eagle County, and my son got COVID. I'm not a vaxxer. I don't believe in the vaccine. I find it, that's for another time. But, you know, my son got COVID from me. We were at home. You know, these kids are getting taught that they will catch this deadly disease that they do not spread during this time at school. I'm like the other mom. It's just emotional. You know, this time in school, and then they get home and, you know, I'm the same. My son gets off the bus and they rip the mask right off of his face. And, you know, he's taught in school that he needs to wear this mask because he's spreading this deadly disease that you can get anywhere. You know, the studies are coming in, they're showing that the mask does not do anything. It is not helping. The vaccine is not helping. We are going to be getting this virus, and we have to stop the fear tactic narrative. So yes, unfortunately, that's all I can say, but thank you very much for allowing me to whisper.
Absolutely. Thank you for being with us. Maggie? Is Maggie there? Don't see Maggie, so again, we'll do a last call here in just a moment. Peter Ungerleader. Is Peter with us? And Carrie Down. Is Carrie with us?
Mayor?
Yes.
Hi, I would just like to ask if anybody else could speak because we didn't know about the email requirement, and I apologize in advance. For all these people that haven't been able to show up or unmute, if we could just speak for like a minute. I'm attending the meeting, and so are a couple of my friends that are very affected by this. Like in a public forum, you would just step up to the podium, hopefully, but this is a little bit different. So is that okay?
Of course. I'm going to make an open call for that. I didn't hear from Carrie, so why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and make comments?
Excellent. Thank you, Mayor. My name is Anna Mari. I live in Aspen. I don't have any children, but I'm kind of known as Auntie Anna. So I have a lot of little ones that I've kind of adopted through all my friends and family. And they're very much affected by this. I have the sweetest little 3-year-old nephew locally that he was not violent in any way or upset. I mean, he's the sweetest little bright-eyed. And now with these masks, he's starting to bite people. And I can tell, I think it's because he doesn't want to go to school. Even though he loves school. He loved school before. He would say, can we go to school? And it would be Saturday or Sunday. And obviously you can't go to school. I said, we're like, what do you mean? He hated the weekend a little bit. Like, what do you mean there's no school? And it was so sweet. And we're all used to this with our little bright-eyed kids. And so now he like is biting the teachers, and we're not even understanding this because has no reason to. He's so happy at home. And he's so happy at school when they're not wearing their masks. But when they are the teachers have become enforcers now, and they're disciplining them like so strongly. And it's sad because they don't want to. A lot of the teachers have said, privately, I hate this. This is like the worst part of my job. And I feel badly for them because they're having to, instead of, bonding with these children and helping them into like becoming amazing people, they're actually being the police. And so I've seen some changes in some of the children since these masking policies and the pandemic, obviously. But in a couple of them, particularly, the pandemic really, and even the lockdowns didn't affect them because they enjoyed home, they enjoyed their parents. It was a fun time. It's really the school issue now. And the school is where they're creating themselves to have anxiety, like because of these masks. So I would just ask that, like the other mothers have mentioned, I was at a couple of those parties, and it was insane. I mean, it was awesome. I loved it. It felt like it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. And we kind of felt like, yay, Aspen's back. And but I don't think that we as adults can be playing and partying and having fun, vaccinated or unvaccinated, if our children are being forced to be having to conform so badly with these masks on that they're almost not wanting to go to school anymore. And I loved school as a kid. I would hate to have had something that would make me hate school because it really affected me well in my life. So thank you so much for this time. I don't think it's necessary. I've gone to other counties, when I'm traveling and I see people and there's no masks, and it's just, I really wish, the studies are there. There are hundreds of studies now at this point of how the masks are not that effective or not effective at all and actually cause bacterial pneumonia. And I think that's what's happening with some of these children. They're getting like colds where they normally didn't before, especially this one child I know very well. He's super healthy, never got sick for the first 2 years of his life, maybe 3. And now because of these masks, he's getting a cold every other month. It's not COVID. I think it's just because he's constantly getting bacterial stuff in his face. And they have studies on that, where these masks cause bacterial pneumonia. That's the last thing we want for our children. So I thank you so much for this time, and thank you for this forum. And we really appreciate anything you can do to get our children back to normal. And not even normal, just awesome, like it was. Forget normal. I want awesome. These children deserve awesome, more so than we do as adults. We can create our own awesome out there. They can't. School is their awesome, and their awesome has been taken away. And it makes me cry, and I don't even have children. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna. Okay, so I've gone through our list. A couple of people did not respond. This is difficult. Obviously, WebEx is difficult. So if you're having problems unmuting yourself, it's *6 if you're on a phone line. I have Julia DeBacker. Julia, are you there?
Hi, if I could talk, if we still have time. Do you still have time for me? Okay.
Yes, go right ahead.
Okay, so I just want to piggyback on all the moms. I'm a mom, and Auntie Anna, thank you for sharing. I just, to introduce myself, I'm Julia DeBacker. I'm a mother of 6 here in Aspen. My kids are ages 3 through 16. So we span the school years, almost completely. Everything the parents said, it's been beyond tough. I don't think I have to reiterate that. I really appreciate you all listening to this. I just want you to remember your first time in Aspen, the first time you stepped foot in Aspen, or maybe you were born here, but the first time you stepped foot in Aspen, and the wow, the beauty, the amazing, we love this place. We covet it like it's one of our own children. We love Aspen. That's our kids. Our kids love Aspen. This is their home. This is where they live and play and love. And it's not Aspen for them anymore. They're not happy. We have, in my own family alone, but throughout the city, their kids are afraid to go to parks because of what kids will think about them, because even though there's no outdoor mask mandate, kids are wearing masks in parks. because the kids think it's part of what they do now. They put it on their faces. So the masks are everywhere and kids don't know what to do. They don't know what to think. And they just want to get back to their Aspen. They want to party and they want to have fun and they want to love this place like we all do and like they used to. And Aspen for them has become a place where they get in trouble if their face is not covered. I just want to bring up, there's been many studies of the benefits of facial recognition in children and facial expressions and use of their verbal communications. So there was a study back in 2009. They studied 840 7-year-old children. This is well over 10 years ago. The studies, the authors of the study concluded that children who had more difficulty identifying emotion in the faces also were likely to have more problems overall, and more specifically with peer relationships among boys and with learning difficulties among girls. Findings suggest that nonverbal receptive skill plays a significant role in children's social and academic adjustment. Now, council members, we've given you that picture in real life right here with what we moms have been able to show you, what's going on in our children and our families and what's going on in the schools. We do not want to raise a generation like this. The children are our future. If we want a future in Aspen, the children are our future, and we cannot raise them to be socially incompetent, fearful, full of anxiety, depressed, scared, and untrusting of authority. We have to consider all of the options out there, and what's happening right now is no longer an option. We can't raise a generation to be able to be functioning and happy and loving and respectful of adults, because that is a big issue right now, is children are struggling to respect adults because they are being told that their self-worth does not matter. They must cover their face and deal with it. And they don't know how to respond to that, so they don't. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Julie.
We brought you to this table to support the voices of Aspen, and we know that you can't change the health orders, but your voices are louder than ours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Julia.
Julia.
Another call for public comment. Members of the public that wish to speak to council on items not up for public hearings this evening. If you are on a phone, please.
Hey, Tori.
Yes?
Hey, Sean Sunkel here.
Hi, Sean.
How you doing?
Good, thank you.
So, hello, Tori. Hello, Rachel. Know you guys. I don't know you other folks. I appreciate you all listening to everybody. I just wanted to chime in briefly. And I know you guys are not the decision makers on this issue, but I appreciate that you guys have some influence here. And the thing that really confuses me is that you can walk into a restaurant, and you have to wear a mask, and then when you sit down, it's okay to take the mask off. But our kids can't walk into school and take their mask off when they sit down. And you know, that's one comment. And the other thing is that I work for a doctor, and he says, you know, that these masks are a joke. They don't do anything. That's really all I had to say. I just wanted to chime in. I appreciate you listening to everybody and all that you guys do.
Thank you, Sean. Good to see you.
Likewise.
Let's see. Kelly. And Nicholas Curry.
Hi there. Sorry I'm joining you right here at the last second. But thanks for...
No problem.
I have to say I was on a planning and zoning joint meeting with the BOCC and getting texts and texts from people who are, I think, struggling as parents as well, but also still really wanting protective measures for our kids. And I'm just going to bring forward forward the statements that I brought to the BOCC in our open discussion today, because it has been a really hard couple of weeks. You know, I know for me personally, we were through quarantine for 2 weeks as a family and having gotten sick after we've avoided it for almost 2 years. And it was really, really hard. I mean, it felt harder to do this last 2 weeks of quarantine than it felt to keep my kids out of school for a year. And I'm not quite sure why that is, if this is just the compounding fatigue of the pandemic that is weighing, but I know I share this with other families, and it was really hard to have a major shift in the public health recommendations that came to childcare programs. So as you guys know, I have 2 kids, one is 2.5 and one is almost 5. Neither of them are vaccinated obviously yet. And we had been operating under a set of guidelines from public health that did not quarantine our kids very, very extensively. It let them stay in school and didn't consider a close contact in a classroom necessarily if they were abiding by good masking procedures. And so this is how our kids have been living for the last couple months. And then early January, we got new guidance that suddenly said the kids had to be treated like close contact exposures, quarantine for 5 days, and they'd only be allowed to go back if they could quarantine, if the teachers could separate them during mealtime, snack time, nap time, which is really burdensome for programs. So there was just this huge level of stress that in the recent weeks in the parent community, and I just want to bring that the stress, yes, is related to having stricter measures that we kind of had gotten through the roughest part of this last wave without them, and not necessarily clear understanding of, you know, why the change. If we're hearing from public health, you know, we're not getting exposure in schools, why the change? And I'm assuming there's a good reason. I've asked public health for that clarification, and those of you here on the public health board, I think will be getting that clarification as the rest of us seek it will. But I'm not here to advocate for any mask relief at the schools. I think it is working. I think it's one of the few tools that is actually helping keep our kids safe. I know other parents share this with me. This is why I've jumped over here to like re-articulate these protective measures for our kids and for teachers. You know, talking to childcare providers, they are struggling with how to keep themselves safe, how to keep their staffs wanting to come back into the classroom during these huge outbreaks. So, you know, that's why I wanted to join on today, because there is another voice out there that thinks that, you know, it's been really hard. There continues to be a burden that is being put on families that I completely acknowledge. And for me, I think it really has highlighted how we infrastructurally do not support families in America. And there's so much more I think we could be doing. And there's a lot that I think the county's tried to do. There's a lot that the city's tried to do. I think that there's a lot more for us to do together and trying to like support families throughout to help reduce all levels of stress. And I don't think that the COVID stress is just related to whether kids are thriving from masking or not, or losing learning time. I think there's a lot more stressors that are happening in families contributing to mental health concerns with children and with families that we can also get at and address together. And I hope to do that work with you all as we have in the past. So thanks for my time.
Thank you, Kelly. Thanks for joining us. Another call for citizen comment this evening. I have a phone number ending in 38 that is unmuted. One last call for public comment this evening.
There's someone new there.
Mayor, I don't
Mr.
know.
Jenkins?
Yes, hello. Can you hear me?
We've got you. Go introduce yourself for the record, please.
Great. My name is Mike Jenkins. I live down in Elgibel. I had a student that was a senior last year at Basalt High School, and I know this is a Aspen City Council meeting, but quite a few of you or some of you on the Pitkin County Board of Health, which directly affects decisions made, I would assume, with the RE1 school district, Rob Stein and the health orders that he's kept in place. So I just like to say a couple things. I think possibly people have already stated them, but I know you're aware the CDC came out and said that cloth masks are not effective, period. It's not about feelings. I don't feel that the masks do or don't do anything. It's a fact put out by the CDC. Secondly, the Omicron variant, it's also a fact that is like a cold for a lot of people. So cities and states that do not have mask orders have the same or lower infection rates than Aspen. Also, the United Kingdom came out, they're in the process of dropping all of their health orders, dropping the mask mandates, the vaccine mandates. Also, Park City, I'm sure you're aware, recently dropped their health orders. So at this point, I'd just like to say, I would implore you to consider the science on both sides of the argument when you make a decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Did you say you're a teacher?
No, I'm not. I own a landscape business. Majority of my business is up in Aspen and Snowmass. So I'm up there quite often during landscape season. And frankly, I don't go up there at all anymore because I have to wear a mask everywhere you go. Why would I do that when I can go to Eagle County and eat in restaurants and shop without masks? So thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Another call for public comment this evening. Members of the public that wish to comment, I've got a phone number here ending in 94 that's unmuted. Are you there?
Mayor, I don't know if it's protocol, but I have friends texting me that they can't unmute. And so is it possible for me, you can see their phone number. If they could, I don't know if I could just say their name and that they're against this or something where their vote is counted at least because they've been listening the whole time. They can't seem to figure out how to do the *6 on their iPhone or something. I'm not sure why.
You can mention their name if you'd like to. I'm not.
And then maybe they can email you to verify that it's them. I mean, I just would like their vote to count because they've been here and they very much care. They have children here in Aspen.
Yeah, of course. If you want to mention a name, that's fine. I called off 10 names. Are they on that list of the names that I've already called?
No, they didn't know to email prior.
Okay.
And actually, some of them are saying they're going to keep trying. But one is Felicia. Last name is Aldrich.
Thank you.
Aldrich. She's very much against this, and she has a 3-year-old in the school system here.
Thanks,
Yeah, preschool.
Anna. Any others? Are there other callers that are trying to unmute?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Oh, hi. I'm so sorry. I have had to pull over a few times on my Down Valley Drive to try to get logged in, but my name is Carrie Down, and I'm a mom of 3 kids. I'm a mom of 3 kids based out of Carbondale. I have 1 kid in the public school and 1 kid at a private school at Valley, and I'm grateful to be a part of the meeting. So I'm here. I'm not sure when it's appropriate to speak, when you want to hear what I have to say. Okay. Well, I just want to thank you all for the time. For me as a mom, I've had a lot of anxiety and to the point I'm actually considering full-on homeschool next year. I just believe that these children, my 3 children in particular, are at 2 schools that, by the way, are wonderful schools. And I know the administration is working really hard to deal with a very impossible situation in this pandemic. But I've got a 3-year-old who's been masked for 2 years. She's been quarantined pretty much 90% of her schooling. She has never really seen a kid's face or a teacher. And the science that I have in my own research is showing that these masks are not really that beneficial anyways. And I think it's time for these kids to be able to see each other and speak with each other. I'm following a lot of families on the East Coast where I'm from. Lots of wonderful families and school districts on the East Coast that are finally standing up to it as well. They are not anti-vaxxers. None of us are. I'm not as well. But they're kind of like me. We're kind of fed up with feeling like these children just are not, they get one childhood, and this is not the childhood I think they deserve. I've been very hesitant to deal with my schools on it because the administrative staff is quite strict, but I'm at a point where, you know, I'm looking at alternate ways to even school them and keep them out of the public schools here, because I just think it's gotten to a point that's not sustainable.
Thanks, Carrie.
Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Carrie. Drive safely. Rachel, go right ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Tory. And I realize we may have some more comments, but I really wanted to jump in for a second while we still have a number of people online. I take these concerns and these issues and unique individual family situations is very serious. And I appreciate the opportunity to hear this. But I'm also really concerned about how was this meeting set up and who was invited. And it sounds like Anna has expected that our council is going to be voting soon on what direction our council gives to the Board of Public Health. And I'm wondering, were the school board invited to this meeting? Was parents who have concerns about their kids' health invited to this meeting? I've looked at our agenda, and our agenda just says public comment. It doesn't say that City Council is having a hearing, pro and con, on whether we should have masks in schools as the one vote that the city has on the Board of Health. And again, I truly appreciate this. I think it's valuable, but I really don't like one-sided hearings. And I feel like that's what we're getting here. I'm not hearing from parents who are concerned because their kids are immunocompromised. I'm not hearing from parents whose kids have had COVID. I'm not hearing anyone with the statistics about kids now having long COVID. And those things are out there too. So I'm really kind of wondering how was this meeting set up so that it's just about one side of an issue, and we didn't even bother inviting the Board of Health or the school board to come and listen in, because that just doesn't seem right. And Tori, you had warned us last night in the sense that there was going to be long public comment tonight, and that's fine. But I'm still wondering if we knew that this was going to be simply an expression of the great concerns of a great many people about masks, which I do appreciate and I take to heart. But I don't have balancing information or anyone else who has a stake in this discussion. They weren't invited. There was no public advertisements about it. There's nothing that says City Council wants to hear from you, pro or con, about masks in school. And I just have to put a little exclamation point that I don't think that's a decent process for us to be forming our opinions. Thank you.
Well, this is public comment. So these people are sharing their sentiments. We often get public
Tori,
comment.
you have a whole list and you knew what this sentiment was going to be about. And I do think it's just unfair to have not told the Board of Health that we were holding a hearing on this.
We're not holding a hearing.
Over an hour on one topic. That's a hearing to me. And
it's not a hearing.
And we've heard Anna ask us for votes. And so I'm sorry, this is just my concern. I think we are not hearing from our entire public. And if people are asking me to make a judgment from that, I can't, because this was not advertised as we want to hear pro and con from everyone. And I'm sorry if that upsets people, but I just have to let you know, I'm very concerned about why we're having a single presentation. And knowing that that was going to be the content, that other involved parties were left in the dark.
Okay, fair enough. No, I'm not coming back to public comment. I'm sorry. I understand you want to talk.
I just was singled out, so I just want to say one sentence because I want to clear it up for her, because I feel bad that she feels like there's a vote. I vote with my dollars, I vote with my energy, I vote with my time. So I use the vote word in a very lax way. I don't think there's a vote tonight. I think a lot of us are just kind of sick of this, and so we're just wanting to speak to it. And so a lot of us, since we were just at dinner together or together this week, we're just like, wow, the media's coming up, let's speak and let them know, because all they're hearing is stuff from mainstream media and from, you know, from the people that are speaking about the fact that they want masks and that masks are in. So it's not about a vote.
I
just
appreciate that very much, and I appreciate what we've heard here.
And I did say that my son had
I like
COVID.
to have balanced public opinion on any number of topics that come before us. And I would point out that the Board of County Commissioners has a public meeting tomorrow at noon, and they will take public comment. So I would encourage everyone who called in today to talk with them as well, because they will have the second vote on the Board of Health. Thank you.
I see hands raised, but I'm not coming back. I'm not coming back to members that have already spoken. So thank you for that. Thank you, Rachel. Another call for public comment this evening. This is our citizen comment portion of our agenda. If there's other members of the public that wish to speak this evening on items not scheduled for public comment on our agenda, please unmute yourself, introduce yourself for the record. All right. To those that were unable to unmute for whatever reason, do know that your name has been submitted. We understand the nature of your comment. If you're on this list, truly that was about 25 people that just had comment. So thank you very much. We appreciate you. This city council always welcomes public comment. So thank you very much for that. And no, there is no result from this evening. This council will have our conversations as I am our representative to the Board of Health, and we will be, you know, representing our vision for public health to that board, and that's where these decisions are made. Skippy.
I just, you know, while everyone's on, I just really want to thank all of you guys for coming and speaking. You know, I'm of the age that most of my friends have small kids, and despite that, a lot of these perspectives are not ones that I had heard until recently. And so I find it tremendously valuable for you all to come here and share your personal stories. It's really not often that it's never happened that I've had to like leave public comment to get something because I'm crying. So thank you. This whole council's been really, really proactive on public health from the beginning. Was one of the first anywhere to act, and has also been a council that has been intimately aware of the mounting mental health crisis. And you know, just to think about a kid who's never seen their classmates' faces, it's pretty terrible. So things are changing quickly, and just know that this whole council is committed to understanding this wholly, and acting. And I just want to thank you guys for coming forward. I think we can all agree it's really time for us to be human again and find the safest and best way to do that. So.
Thanks. Thank you, Skippy. Okay, with no other public comment at this time, we're going to move on our agenda. That'll bring us to council members' comments. John or Ward?
Kind of did the board reports last night. Haven't been reading as much as I normally do, so I don't have any bad news about the environment currently.
That's not a good reason.
Sorry.
Yeah, I will call. John, are you finished? I'm sorry, didn't mean to cut you off.
Not at all. Go ahead, Ward.
Yeah, I share sentiments for everybody that spoke. I wish it was I wish we could vote here right now to end this pandemic. I think we'd have we'd all be in favor of ending it. It's not something we have any control over, and we don't even have control over the public health orders. All the people that spoke, I sympathize and empathize with all the reasons. I just wish that it was over. I thought we were over before the Delta, and now that we have another one, and I just read that there's another variant, and you react to the amount of information you have. And when the Delta variant came out, it was very deadly, and now this most recent one is very contagious, but not as deadly. So you do the best you can with the information you have. And I don't want kids to have masks on. I don't want to have a mask on. I'm tired of having fogged up glasses. I think we're all over it, but we're not over it. It's not done with us. So I mean, you can find a news source and hundreds of studies to support whatever view you have. I do think that vaccinations help. I think the latest email I got from the county is 69% of the people that are in the hospital have not been vaccinated. I think that K-19 mask or the N19 mask help a lot. I don't want to get into a debate about whose facts are facts, but I share the concerns and sentiments with everybody that spoke this evening. I'm over it. I think we all are, and we patiently listen to the frustrations of all of you, although it's not an issue that we have any control over. If we could vote to end it, we would. The only prepared comment, I have no prepared comments, but I just want to say, aside from COVID-19, to be careful out there. I've just in the last few days, somebody that we know was skiing with their nephew, got hit by their nephew, got flight for life and ICU from skiing. I was walking downtown today and somebody turned a corner and ran right into a pedestrian, didn't stop. So somebody else called me and said that they fell on ice and bruised themselves. It's winter, it's Aspen, it's icy, be careful. I was able to get the license plate number of the person that ran into the pedestrian. We have about a month ago, somebody was flight for life in ICU for a number of days. One of the public comments mentioned a poor child in Vail that was run over in the parking structure. So my comment is to be careful out there. It's like at the beginning of a boxing match, the referee gets the combatants in the middle of the ring and says, protect yourself at all times. And we need to do that. Aside from the pandemic, just be careful out there. When somebody gets hurt and they're in flight for life, all of a sudden you realize how valuable life is and how every second counts and should be cherished. So thank you all for your thoughts, for expression of your frustrations, for perhaps vetting a bit of your emotions. I think we all here share that. I feel like going into a corner sometime and screaming. I just want it to be over, but it's not, and it's a fact of life right now. So thank you.
Thanks, Ward. I want to add a little to that. As a matter of fact, Ward was referring to a member of our community that got hit while skiing, flight for life, or down to Denver, and as a matter of fact, is awaiting surgery and cannot get scheduled in for surgery because the hospital's capacity is challenged with COVID patients. So, you know, I think that a lot of times some people forget that there's further ramifications. It's not just about whether if it's a cold or it's not a cold for certain people, but it's impacting, you know, a lot of different health and safety. So all around the state. Anyway, our thoughts and prayers go out to her, and we hope for her to get that surgery soon and on our way to recovery. So other council comments, Rachel, any other items?
As John said earlier, we did do our board reports just yesterday. I was on the CML Colorado Municipal League caucus call today, and a little bit of update of kind of new bills that have dropped. And the only one I'd mention at this point in time where I think we should keep an eye on, pardon me, is there's a measure being introduced to reduce the number of members of the State Transportation Commission by one. And the proposal is to realign them instead of transportation districts with congressional districts, which means that the rural areas of Colorado would only get one transportation commissioner for all of the West Slope and these areas. And so it's always been a concern, and there's been attempts in the past to reduce the Transportation Commission representation of the rural areas and focus it more on the Denver Metro Front Range. So that's one we're going to keep an eye on. The only other thing is I would say Ward has said it very eloquently, Skippy as well, Tori in the past, and Skip and others. John, I don't want to miss anybody here, of the concerns that we have with public safety that run the full 360 gamut. And that is whether it is protection from COVID, whether COVID measures are causing mental health distress, how we keep our public safe, our seniors safe, our children safe. And it's not been an easy set of choices for anyone. I have a lot of empathy with the decisions the people on the Board of Health have to make. And I can only offer my greatest empathy and sympathy for the challenges that parents with full families and full houses are facing. You know, I don't think it's of value for us to go backwards through what we've tried to do, but throughout this time period, being able to keep the child care centers open and safely open for essential workers, and then broadening to the broader community. And as folks have alluded to here, some people say, oh, well, people don't want to speak up because they're afraid of some recriminations from it. Well, that flows on both sides of this aisle. And you hear teachers and people afraid to speak up because then they will lose their job, and people who are worried about their health on the other side of this issue. So I think we all need a little more empathy and understanding with people, whether they've chosen to get a vaccination, whether they've chosen not to get vaccinations, or whatever, because at this point, we're still all in the same boat. And I know how terrible any one of us would feel if the mask order is listed and 2 weeks from now, we lose a child to COVID. You know, that's going to be the other side of this, and where everybody thinks, wow, was I really on the right side of history with my comments, since my neighbor has now lost their child. And that is that 0.001% that might happen. And you know, if people take the statistics of getting hospitalized as so low, or death as so low, and yet if we were allowing our airlines to operate with the same percentage of flight failures, we'd be losing hundreds of people a day. And so percentages are deceptive. I have a grown-up son, so I can't say I have a young one, but I know what it felt like whenever their fever was up at 101. I know what it felt like when you're trying to figure out what are those funny spots that are showing up on their belly, and how quickly will the doctor open, and does it need to go to the emergency ward, or can I wait till Monday? These are tough choices that all parents have to deal with. And I was lucky I didn't have to raise him during a pandemic. And so I have a lot of empathy, and I can feel the heartbreak that's out there, and the stress levels that are overwhelming. But as Ward said, the pandemic isn't really done with us. And I'm hopeful we can reach good conclusions, and I'm hopeful we can put this all behind us as soon as possible. So I will thank everyone for their comments. I want to also thank the members of the press who are on our screen, because I think they're going to do a good job of getting this message and your concerns out to the greater public and to the people who perhaps were not in attendance at this meeting because they did not know what the discussion was going to be. Thank you.
Thanks, Rachel. John?
Yeah, just real quick, I wanted to add that I actually have a child in the public school system, and she has to wear a mask at school and during her sports activities. And we're very aware that it's an imperfect situation, and that, yes, children will learn better when they can see facial expressions and actually hear their teachers. But it's not about just our children, it's about everybody's children. The other thing I wanted to say was I was in a very popular business here in Aspen recently, and I noticed that there was one person in my area that wasn't wearing a mask. And she was chatting up the help, and after she was gone, I asked the help, you know, why didn't you say anything to that lady? And they said, well, we've been asked not to. And they were really dismayed that their employer didn't have their back on the mask issue. And and you can understand why. They're in a popular business where people from around the world are coming in and out. Granted, it's different than our kids in schools, but again, I mirror what Ward said. We are all tired of masks. And if we could all vote right now, we would vote unanimously to end this. But unfortunately, we don't have that power. Thanks.
Thanks, John. Ward?
Yeah, I just want to circle back. One of my neighbors made a comment about chickenpox parties. My brother-in-law in Maine was so upset that his friend who didn't believe in vaccinations had a party for his whole company. Nobody wore masks. Everybody got COVID, and the owner of the business died. People die, and so chickenpox parties are one thing, but a COVID-19 party is something else again. Thank you for allowing me to circle back.
Thanks, Ward. Skippy, any other comments this evening?
I mean, I don't have any additional comments, and I don't serve on the Board of Health, and I don't have the information that that board has to render decisions. And so I defer to their expertise. But I think what is abundantly clear for me is that situations change, and when they change, they require new responses. And, COVID is endemic at this point. We will all get it at some point. The question is to what level of severity and what sort of healthcare ecosystem and environment, and with what level of care. We've had to deal with overwhelm of our healthcare system. We've had to deal with a year and a half prior to a vaccine. We've had to deal with a lot of things, and we've built systems to do that appropriately. And now that we have those systems, and now is not yet completed, but as Omicron kind of finishes burning some of the last fuel in this fire, it's appropriate for us to look at the impacts of our interventions, the unintended consequences around mental health and stress. And man, I know I've heard it from each of you in this meeting, and I share it. It's been really tough for everyone, and we need to start weighing those things against the harms of COVID as well. And we've never lived in a zero risk world. We never will live in a zero risk world, and I don't think we want to live in a zero risk world. So I think we would be doing a tremendous disservice to expect that to be the baseline.
Thank you, Skippy. My comments tonight are short. I am our representative to the Board of Health, and I represent us. I do not go into the Board of Health and just talk about what I believe or what I think. I utilize you guys as our team. As you all know, we had some weeks ago, a month ago, we had our hockey users and ice users asking us for similar consideration. That consideration went to the public health team for their evaluation, and then consideration by the board. The recommendation from the public health team was not to do any mask removal at this time. The city has subsequently set up a 100% vaccination league that we have participation in. So they are able to unmask on the ice in the vaccinated league that has been set up. Other than that, there's other programs that are still going on. They're still requiring masks on the ice. I only bring that up because this conversation that these people brought to us this evening is a Board of Health topic. So again, I just will be having conversations with all of you and about what you want me to represent and forward at the Board of Health. So if there's any more information or discussion that you want to have, or maybe have a Board of Health, Public Health come meet us at a work session again, things like that, just let me know. We'll figure out however we want to conduct our conversation, we can have it that way. So, Rachel, go right ahead.
Thank you, Tori. I realized I had forgotten something, and that was to request that perhaps we have an action item at the end of the agenda to discuss the request I had put out at the end of our meeting last night to talk about a small donation to the emergency fire relief in the Boulder Superior area, if that's okay.
Yeah, it sounds good. We'll add that to the end of our agenda then. Yep. Okay. Those are my comments this evening. I don't see any agenda amendments except for adding that discussion under action items. That'll bring us to city manager's comments this evening. I believe Diane is actually joining us. Diane, any comments this evening?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'll be brief. First, I just want to let council know that effective this coming Monday, January 31st, city staff will be back to a normal schedule. And basically that's administrative staff who have not been keeping the office open will be returning to a normal schedule. At the same time, I do want to thank all the staff who've worked over the past month to keep offices open and available to the public at all times, and also to the staff whose jobs don't accommodate remote work, who have continued to provide the high level of service they do. The other piece I do want to mention, Mayor Tory mentioned this at the start of the meeting. I'm not sure you all had the opportunity to hear. The February 1st meeting will be fully virtual. We are very clear as staff that we want to get you into your new council chambers. We are waiting on one piece of equipment. The mayor had the opportunity to talk to a couple staff about the technical issues related to that one piece of equipment that is stuck on a boat. And we are working towards hoping to have February 7th and 8th in person in the new chambers. Thank you.
Thank you. That'll bring us down on our agenda. We did take care of board reports last night, so we'll go on to the consent calendar. The consent calendar this evening is resolution number 9 and resolution number 13, series of 2022. And this is the Red Mountain Waterline Improvements Construction Contract. Does anybody have some questions on this item?
I would make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Can we have a roll call vote for the consent calendar, please?
Councilor Doyle?
Yes.
Councilor Hallenstein?
Yes.
Councilor Mesro?
Yes.
Councilor Richards?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes. No notice of call-ups this evening. That brings us to first reading of ordinances. And this is ordinance number 1, series of 2022 liquor and marijuana code amendments. Again, this is first reading. And I could take a motion for reading.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, could we have a roll call vote for reading of ordinance number 1, series 2022?
Counselor Doyle,
Yes.
Counselor Howenstein,
Yes.
Counselor Mesro,
Yes.
Counselor Richards,
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
Yes.
This is ordinance 1 of series of 2022, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Aspen, Colorado, amending Title V of the Aspen Municipal Code, marijuana and alcoholic beverages.
Thank you. And
Mr.
we have,
Mayor.
yep, go ahead, Jim.
Sorry, I jumped in too quick. Mr. Mayor, this is Jim True, City Attorney. I am here to introduce this. These changes that are recommended in Ordinance 1 is the result of recommendations made by the local licensing authority pursuant to their resolution number 1. These are issues that have come up over the years for the local licensing authority, and they have recommended various changes to the code to address some of their concerns. I would note that they're primarily concerned with the limitations on those who can apply to the licensing authority, and that's reflected in Section 1 of Ordinance 1. And then Sections 2 and 3 regard some issues that have come up involving some of the inconsistencies between the provisions that address marijuana licensing and provisions that address alcohol licensing. And they address some issues that they have faced when businesses either lose their premises or become inactive for long periods of time, and yet the license remains. And these are issues that have just come up, and these are efforts to just clarify some of the language. Again, this is first reading, and I would note that I talked to a local attorney, Lauren Mayton, today regarding some issues that she had with some of the language, and she pointed out an inconsistency. There's just an example of some of the issues she raised. For instance, in 5.04.080, in the first paragraph A, and this is the existing paragraph that we did not propose to change, it states that the term of alcohol licenses are 12 months, while the marijuana code uses the term 1 year. And there are some other little changes that she and I discussed that I may bring back with changes at second reading. Also, there are, because of a code rewrite, a state statute rewrite in 2018, there's some inconsistencies that I was attempting to address. This was not part of the resolution 1, but I thought while we were amending the code, we should address those inconsistencies, and those are reflected in sections 4 and 5. So I'm happy to answer any questions. There may be a few minor changes at second reading. They will not be substantive enough to require a third reading, but they may just clarify some language that we have. And I will discuss this further with Ms. Mayton because she is active in the industry, and I think her points are well taken. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but this is attempting to clarify and clean up some of the issues that the local licensing authority has faced over the years.
Questions from council members? Ward, go right ahead.
Yeah, Jim, this is a little bit of just background for me. It seems as though a renewal of a license is an administrative approval by the city clerk with an appeal to the LLC. Is that correct?
There's not an appeal to the LLC or LLA. What we're trying to do is recognize that there are some renewal issues that come up, and the LLA can raise them or the clerk can raise them. And we are trying to make the review of renewals between the alcohol provisions and the marijuana provisions consistent. The clerk does have, we weren't trying to eliminate all of the clerk's authority to do administrative renewals, only ones that had issues raised. But once she approves it administratively, if she elects to do, then there's not an appeal process. If she does not administratively approve it, then the LLA has to raise it, or they can raise it themselves.
And thank you. And it seems as though the license goes with the business at a specific location. There's some a lot of mentions of changing of a location and the license and lease and leasee. So in my notes, I just put, does the license follow the business in a specific location?
The license follows the business. If there's a change in ownership, that has to be approved by the LLA. If there's a change in location, that has to be approved by the LLA. But if the business stays and remains active, then the license stays, but it does have to be renewed, and there has to be an application for renewal every year, or 12 months, depending on how we wrote them.
My final comment was that I appreciate that LLA coming forward with this, and this is the kind of feedback and involvement that we're looking for. I'm looking for from commissions and boards, so that the LLA to see these issues and to bring it forward. I just commend that, and thank you.
John?
I just wanted to say these seem like some pretty common sense fixes, and I agree with what Ward said about trying to make it easier for board members to serve is also a great goal. So thanks, Jim.
I would take a motion.
I would make a motion to approve on first reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Mike, could we have a roll call vote for ordinance number 1 on first reading, please?
Councilor Doyle?
Yes.
Councilor Howenstein?
Yes.
Councilor Mesro?
Yes.
Councilor Richards?
Yes.
Mayor Tory?
Yes.
Thank you. We'll be back on February 8th, I believe it's currently on.
All right. That'll bring us on our agenda. Down to our action items. No public hearings this evening. So action items, we'll take this one first, which is resolution number 14, series 2022, Aspen Mini Storage Annexation Petition.
Hi, Mr. Mayor and Council. Ben Anderson, planner with Community Development for the record. This action in front of you this evening is a initial step in the entitlement process for the eventual lumberyard project. And the annexation process that we'll describe a little bit this evening is going to start tonight. There's going to be 3 additional meetings with City Council as we move towards the annexation and zoning of the Aspen Mini Storage project. Property. This is one of the 3 pieces of property that are coming together for the intended lumberyard site. And I just wanted to give a little bit of explanation about the process that you're going to be going through and differentiate the difference between what's required by Colorado state statute and then eventually getting to our City of Aspen ordinance process. So if I may share my screen.
Please.
All right. Just a second, please. I'm having some monitor issues. Is that showing up on your screen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the amendment process, again, there's 4 steps. Tonight's the first of those steps. Tonight is not a public hearing. Within this process, there will be 2 opportunities for the public to participate and make comment. The first 2 steps are required by Colorado state statute. These are not things that are required by City of Aspen process. We do have a annexation plan that requires us to acknowledge and participate and follow the requirements of the Colorado revised statutes. But this first step tonight, resolution 1, does a few things that I'll discuss on the next slide. Step 2, we have scheduled for March 8th. This is a second resolution that is a public hearing. And this essentially talks about the petition for annexation that the City of Aspen has put forward and the annexation map to make sure that they're in substantial compliance with the requirements of the Colorado revised statutes. We'll then move on to the City of Aspen ordinance process. Steps 3 and 4 will do first reading and second reading of ordinances that annex the property and then establish the initial zoning for the property. That second reading, again, will be a public hearing with the opportunity for folks to participate. I will also say that this process as described and that we're following is identical to the annexation and zoning process that the city followed 11 or 12 years ago with the lumberyard property itself. And so this process is essentially a replication of that process. So what Resolution 14 does, again, this is mostly to show compliance with Colorado revised statute requirements, shows that the annexation petition and initial annexation map are in compliance with CRS. It establishes this March 8th as a public hearing to review compliance with CRS and authorizes public notification requirements. I will be working with the clerk's office. There are some specific notice requirements for that March 8th meeting that are a little bit different from our typical notice requirements. And then lastly, it authorizes the initiation of the land use process to annex and zone the property eventually through the ordinance process with the City of Aspen. So this is a pretty cursory step in this larger process of this one piece of the lumberyard project. It's an important one. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have about the process or the eventual outcome of this, but we recommend approval of Resolution 14 this evening. Happy to answer any questions.
Council, questions of staff?
I'm sorry, I haven't found the hand feature, but Ben, is annexation subject to referendum similar to other land use ordinances?
I'll hand that question over to Mr. True.
That is actually a relatively controversial question, but I've had some communications and conferences with other city attorneys, and we generally believe that it is.
Thank you. I was under the impression everything we did by ordinance was, so I just following up. Thank you.
Just to let you know, it's not as clear. Legislative acts are always subject to referendum, with some minor exceptions or some major exceptions, but this is a little different, and there is some controversy about that, and there's not clarity with the courts, but most attorneys I've talked to in other jurisdictions do believe it is subject to it.
Just conversationally, when Burlingame was purchased and we were going to bring it into the city with annexation, Jim wasn't the attorney, but our attorneys at that time said, you know, you don't have to put it to a vote, but it is subject to referendum. So that was just a different opinion at a different time. Thank you.
I think that's consistent. We don't have to put it to a vote. It's just whether it's subject to referendum, which is somebody else petitioning to it. Consistent with what you just said? Okay, thanks.
All right, this is a resolution. It will be coming back to us, but this resolution, I'm looking for a motion.
I move we adopt Reso 14, 2022.
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion? Could we have a roll call vote for Resolution 14, please?
Councilor Doyle,
Yes.
Councilor Howenstein,
Yes.
Councilor Mesro,
Yes.
Councilor Richards,
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
Yes. Thank you very much, Ben. That will bring us to our last item. This was an item that Rachel introduced last evening about doing some kind of funding for relief and for the fires that swept through Boulder and the surrounding areas. Rachel, do you want to start the conversation?
Yes, thank you, Tori. I appreciate a chance to speak to my colleagues about this. As I said before last night, the magnitude and the extent of the urban fire that we saw in Louisville and Superior earlier this month was just devastating. Close to 1,000 families had lost their homes. And it's, kind of beyond the pale of these sort of things. It's certainly a wake-up call about water and fire hazards for the entire state. But it really reminded me very much of the large flooding that occurred on the Front Range in Boulder County, down the South Platte, going all the way through those communities. Was that probably 6 or 7 years ago? I was a county commissioner at the time. And that was a pretty incredible natural event. But there's kind of a concept we think of as mutual aid among either municipalities or counties or things like that. And Pickens County sent their bulldozers down and drivers to the Front Range, to the South Platte, to Weld County, very politically different from ours, to help them, to give them the assistance they needed to try to get roads open again and basically put rivers back in the banks and dig out mud and things like that. We also sent down Nan Sundin and some workers from the Human Services to assist with administrative work, getting people hooked up with Human Services, going through application process, helping hundreds and hundreds of homeowners. That was all done on the county dime. They were not paid or compensated by Weld County or Boulder County or Larimer County or any of the affected communities in this major disaster. And that is what mutual aid is often really about. And as I thought about the Boulder and Superior issues that were so very big and so many families devastated, I realized that, it's not as if the city has staff members who could go help with that. It's not as if they need bulldozers. But I thought that a token, a $3,000 type of contribution to the broader relief funds, and take a little time to select ones that will really be meaningful, would be a good human gesture from the city of Aspen. And just today in the paper, I was reading that there's some people in Glenwood Springs who are organizing citizens to raise money for a ball player who lost all his gear, in the fire. And so families are without cars that they need for transportation for their jobs. And it's just quite a long cleanup, and it's going to be an awful long rebuild. I think the other story I told the other night was when Aspen did contribute to the small town of Granby, which also would have been very politically different from us, when they had a madman destroy their town hall and their main street. And it was a couple decades ago. So it just struck me as being something that was similar, that it is something that, should our community be in that sort of extreme distress, I think we'd appreciate when neighboring fellow municipalities offer even a token of some support and empathy for the issue. I don't believe this is something that goes global. I don't think it's something that goes national. I don't think we need to rise to every event and every challenge that we see in Colorado. But maybe it's because I spent some time in that immediate area when I was doing legislative matters at the Front Range a bit to think about those neighborhoods. They were doing all the right things in terms of compact growth and density and the things you don't want to sprawl. But I don't know if our board is open to that. It just seemed something I'd like to see us consider some sort of contribution. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Skippy, and then Ward.
Thanks. Yeah, Rachel, thank you for just for having this idea and bringing it to us. I want to support you in this, and not just you, support us in this. I think it's really meaningful. And yesterday when you said it, my first reaction was that we should help. And the thing that kicked in for me was a concern actually of like, well, are we only doing this because it is a similar community? And hearing your examples of Weld and Granby is really meaningful to me, because I think this is really about neighborliness, pronunciation, and showing up in a time of need, irregardless of one's political beliefs or wealth or general culture. And I think as long as we're grounding it in that, that it's absolutely appropriate and an honor and a gift to be able to do something, even if it's small. So thank you.
Thanks, Skippy. Ward.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel, for bringing this before us and into our consciousness. I feel it's totally appropriate for us to have some kind of a show of support and sympathy. With respect, Rachel, I don't know that $3,000 is going to do anything, but perhaps we could commission some kind of art or sculpture to commemorate it, in that monetary amount, if something could be commissioned, just something that would be actually there instead of just disappearing into a big pot. I value public art and sculpture, and just to toss that out for consideration.
John, your thoughts?
I just want to address what Ward said. Well, let's start with what Rachel bringing this to the forefront, I think is an awesome opportunity for us to show some, I don't know if we'd call it bipartisanship, because Boulder County is fairly well aligned with us, but at any rate, I like the sentiments. And I agree with Ward. Well, I think the amount could be a little bigger. $5,000 would be a good starting point for me personally. And as far as commissioning art as an artist, I think that's a fantastic idea, but I think it should be up to the community to decide how the money's spent. That's all.
I appreciate both of those ideas very much, and see what Tori has to say. And I don't know that we have to reach finality on it tonight, but I think we've got a general direction going, and can continue to work it through.
Let's see. I believe in this situation, every penny helps. This is extensive. Over 1,000 homes. How many thousands of people are impacted? I'm very supportive of this. I'm interested though. I had a few members of the public contact me over the last month and also feel this same compulsion to help and to give. So maybe we should start with that. Let's get the word out that the city of Aspen is looking to do this and see if there's any other members of our community that would like to participate with us as well.
Good idea.
And so there, you know, there's we've got some media here on this call, so hopefully we can get maybe some kind of news story out there that we are trying to call our community together to do some support. But the basic premise here, I'm very supportive of. I appreciate the suggestions of $3,000 or $5,000. I'm in the neighborhood there too, so I think the one outstanding question for me still is where. There's a couple of different funds that are set up, but I'm interested in their distribution because I think it could be really great for us to give directly to maybe families that don't have some of perhaps the resources and coverage that others might have. So why don't we, since they're and Skippy, I'll come to you in one second. Since we have broad support for this, let's do a little bit more looking into what our avenue there is, and at the same time, let's see if we can ask our community if anybody would like to step up as well and participate with us. Skippy, your comments?
Yeah, Tori, I loved what you were saying about community. And, you know, Rachel, you were saying how in the past there's been staff time, but, you know, what to and what do we have to give? Maybe the way to do it is to have, you know, 2 hours of staff time, you know, an hour to look into, to kind of pre-vet for our community, what is the best place to donate money, right? Where is it most effective? And then when we figure that out, spend the other hour putting together a GoFundMe campaign. The city of Aspen puts in the first $3,000 or $5,000 in that campaign. You run a couple of newspaper ads. You've got a week window to give, and at the end of that week, we facilitate the giving on behalf of everybody.
You know, I thank you again. Thank you all for your openness to this. I know it's a little out of left field. I agree with that concept of you know, raising through the community a little bit and putting down what we've already putting in. I just would mention that I basically brought the same kind of concept to Club 20 on an executive call a few weeks ago. And the result was that when the program was printed up for the Voices of Rural Colorado sessions, it had a Q code that people could pop into to be able to donate directly from that group. And so that reached the 22 Action 22 counties and the Progressive 16 counties, as well as Club 20. So I think we're all trying to get the information out there. And I think that Q code might give us at least one of the better sources for where to give the money in a way that's meaningful. So again, I think we could continue to kind of hash this out with our manager, acting manager, and the general direction. I'll go 3, I'll go 5, whatever the broader consensus is. I really appreciate the support.
Sounds good. We'll take all this to Diane and have that conversation tomorrow and see how it's best to be effective in this. Yeah. So thank you so much,
Okay.
Rachel.
Yeah, one last little thing,
really great.
Tori, just so you know, I actually had dropped a copy of that Club 20 program off on Shannon's desk today, and it was there for my reimbursements for the travel, but the Q code is right in there if you flip through a few pages. Thank you.
Great. Okay, thank you, Council. We'll be coming back with details on that, and like I said, I think we have an opportunity to bolster what we're going to do, and see if we can get some more funds from community members that are thinking the same way we are. And you know, I think it's fantastic that we're having this conversation. Rachel, I thank you so much for bringing that up last night, and I think it speaks volumes about where our heart is, and support for people that, you know, are our neighbors, but not in our community. I think is really great. So I really appreciate this. Council, that brings us to the end of our agenda this evening.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
second.
I'll second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any further comments, discussion?
Thank you, Tori.
Mike, can we have a roll call vote for adjournment, please?
Councilor Doyle,
Yes.
Councilor Howenstein,
Yay.
Councilor Mesro,
Yay.
Councilor Richards,
Yes.
Mayor Tory.
Yes. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you. Have a good week, everybody.
Ciao, y'all.
Ward, it's good to see Ward without a hat on right now.
Appreciate that, Ward.
Good night, guys. Thank you.
Night.